Hello there, folks and folkies, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, place where I share a lot of introspective content, ideas, and things that come through my mind, and I feel like sharing with the others. And today's video would be again a bit about ignorance and, well, what is the difference in between ignorance and, well, knowledge and conscious awareness, right? Now, many people might actually say that things have to be logical, right? This is the greatest problem apparently in society because people place way too much attention on logics, right? And the problem is people, psychologically speaking, they end up feeling as trash. Okay, now these are heavy thoughts, heavy ideas, great themes that one can really speak a lot on regarding nowadays. Now, why do many people feel like trash? Well, many people feel like trash because of ignorance, right? Now, of course, so many people would really not like to be called ignorance, but, well, the only way to kind of live nowadays is by being somewhat ignorant, because ignorance allows you, right? It acts as a shield. It allows you to bypass the pain that you are feeling and, well, unfortunately, the pain of others. And it provides you with a feeling and a sense that literally everything is good, everything is normal. And unfortunately, it also wants you to remain there, right? You're creating technically a comfort zone, and you don't want to leave that, right? Basically, you are living like an animal, right? Scientists have said that with many animals, they won't ever leave their comfort zone because, well, that's how they live their existence, right? They wouldn't, for example, a frog, right? If you throw a frog into boiled water, it will jump away, right? It's a natural instinct. However, there is this other point. If you simply leave a frog into water and you slowly boil the water, it might not actually give it up, because if it's adjusted to it, right? If it identified itself with it and it became its comfort zone, in many cases, right, in many scenarios, a frog simply chose to die in there because it was basically its comfort zone. So in that case, right, in that experiment, the survival mechanisms, right, were far more important, right, in the sense of comfort zone than in the sense of the physical survival, right? And all these again stem from the idea of unconsciousness, okay? Choosing not to be aware of the environments, and, well, that's basically not the best thing to ever do, because in our society you have to be aware of so many more things, right? The human body is far more complex than the other animals. Therefore, one has to be far more conscious to have a great and graceful experience in this physical body. Now, I've been saying in previous videos that constantly people choose to become ignorant. However, as of these days, right, and the virus pandemic, people are starting to basically wake up more and more and realize that, well, the rights they only had on paper no longer belong to them, right? I've kind of said this for a long time, that constitutions and the such were just concepts to make people feel a bit more important, because basically we're all shit in the eyes of society. Rights only belong to those who rule, because you know what they say, it's always the same pattern, right? When you threaten the authorities, or the ones who rule, they will always come out and say that it is their right to say something, even if they said something wrong. We live in a democratic state and we're a democratic power and the such. But when you say something wrong, you get your account banned. It's always heavy repercussion on you, but the state never gets to be blamed, right? Because we live in a democratic state. And like many other people, I'm kind of fed up with this democracy illusion, okay? Because what's the point? What is democracy, right? Democracy means the power of the people, but what is the power of the people? In a society in which, compared to the Middle Ages, right, when monarchy was the only way, what is this modern democracy, it's kind of the same thing as monarchy, right? You have a single power, which, well, it's not attributed to a single person, right? But, well, it's a single entity ruling it, right? And, well, of course, it's represented by three powers, yes, but the point is it's still a very small minority which decides what the people do. And your only power in such a state is that you theoretically choose the one you want to rule, right? You choose a certain party through a thing called vote. But the question is, do you really think that vote that you put on a piece of paper is really counted, right? It's like in my country, people have to count around several million votes, and it's like they count them throughout the day, and by the end of the day, you know, the same day in which you go and vote, it's like they've already counted millions of votes, right? And you don't count them cybernetically, right? Like you don't vote online and you know there's something that actually counts the votes automatically. No. You know, people like definitely count them one by one, you know, the papers, and then they send the results somewhere, and it's like, what the fuck, right? And in several hours, you want to tell me that they actually count millions of you know, well, all these things, right? Now, of course, this may be legit or not. However, in many countries, especially in America, right, they have created a system that doesn't allow anyone to easily reach their positions, right, which is basically a very good point. However, it kind of really shows that, you know, your vote as a civilian really doesn't matter. Only, you know, people who are ignorant, right, they embrace certain things and they live in those as if it's a true reality, right? Only for those it works, because they finally have a sense of power, right? They have the impression that they have participated in history, right? Because since you are born, you are technically trash in this society. Everything that you do is never good enough, and you know, you've heard this from your parents ever since you were young, from school, even some of your friends, the whole society, your boss, you know, it's like people identify themselves with this, and well, they kind of feel like trash. Worse than that, many people surrounding you are just, you know, very pathetic in a way. They won't do anything to improve their lives. So basically you become a trash bin of, you know, people's insecurities, people's problems, and all these things, because as I've been saying, ignorance means accepting everything without using your own well, let's call it discernment, right? Because someone calls you an idiot and you suddenly become angry. But the question is, why do you become angry? First of all, it's just someone's opinion, right? And secondarily, why do I identify with something that other people say? Surely you may have made a big mistake, but in the end, what you should think of is there is no such thing as mistakes, right? Surely things will rarely end up the way you really want, because, hey, there are thousands of things that, you know, the mind can't keep hold of, right? But having a so-called mistake means at least you have tried, right? You have tried, so basically it means that, hey, I have done a step. Who else would have done that step, right? And when you do something and it doesn't go well, right? People who especially expect you to fail, they will already jump and, you know, like they will call you a failure. However, the point is, you may fail 1,000 times, but at least you tried that many times, and you have still accumulated some experience, right? Experience which most people would kind of really, well, can't say die for, but they would really want that. So that is what ignorance is. People call you names, people do you this, people tell you that, but where is the proof, right? Just like so many people fuss when it comes to video games, right? They have a bad day and they think that they will have some fun in an online, you know, multiplayer game, right? And the question is like, okay, that's already one of the worst mistakes, because you're kind of lying yourself. You know, so many people say, okay, I'm gonna have some fun in different games, and well, I don't know about Valorant, for example, but I heard there are many of those, you know, really toxic communities in different other games, right? And well, League of Legends, a game which I'm also playing, and well, many other games, right? They have quite a toxic community. Usually this tends to be so in MOBA games, right? Because that's usually where communities can end up being the most toxic. And you always have those people who aren't good enough, or who they just troll, and they just ruin other people's days to justify the wrongs in their own life, right? And feel they have a certain power, right? So that is also another proof of ignorance, right? They don't feel their own pain, and they don't feel the pain they are causing to others, because that's what ignorance basically is. And worse than that, some people might even become toxic, and they start flaming around, right? They start throwing swears and such, and other people react to that, because, as I've been saying, ignorance means accepting everything without any discernment. So next time you are called names and such, now the point is, well, where is the proof, right? The point is, in order to beat ignorance, right, there is a great counter to it, which is called realization, right? Now, in order to achieve realization, okay, realization is still somewhat at the level of the mind, okay? It's not beyond the mind. You haven't transcended the mind necessarily, but realization is far more powerful, right, than simply the logical mind, right? Now, why I'm saying this is because, the whole school works on, kind of beating realization, right? It's like you don't want children to realize things. You just want them to follow things stupidly, right? Like, one of those moments when you realize something, it's like your whole world expands, right? It's like you've suddenly reached a piece of, I don't know, heaven, let's say it like that, right? It's like it's such a burst of emotions. It's such, like you finally feel that you have achieved something truly great, right? Something truly amazing, right? Endless, right? Because school will teach you that 2 plus 2 equals 4, okay? Now, in a way, indirectly, you may already have known that by the time you go to school, right? You play with toys, you put 2 dolls near 2 other dolls, and you get 4, right? But, that may not come as a realization to many people because, again, ignorance, right? And, you have those moments at school when the teacher teaches you how to do a certain exercise and you have to do by that same example. But for some reason, you might actually have an idea and you may want to actually do it in a different way. And suddenly you get a grasp, right? You finally realize why certain things were taught to you and what's the actual link in between them, right? Because up till then you were learning them mechanically, right? Ignorantly. You are just accepting them as they are, right? Instead of just realizing it, right? Like, school teaches you that water boils at around 100 degrees, but many people simply don't realize that, right? It's a very powerful sensation, right, which cannot be felt in ignorance, because people take things for granted. When you take things for granted, you're not gonna realize them, right? You know that, water boils at around 100 degrees. It can be a bit less, but usually it's a bit more than just that because, well, there are a lot of other materials in the water that can pose resistance, so it's usually a bit more than 100. But, well, scientifically proven water, let's say, pure water, which we rarely get from tap water, let's say around 100, 105 degrees, okay? And, well, it becomes so logical to the mind that you simply will ignore the idea of realizing it, right? And realization is basically becoming one with your environment, right? Because when you go out, you're always going to focus on what you feel about certain people, right? You see all the people with the face masks, you see a lot of people who are ignorant, and you always see this world which you simply don't like, right? You always focus on that instead of focusing on, for example, just looking around without putting any judgment on literally everything, because again, judgment is an aspect of ignorance. We have accepted certain thoughts, but in order for them to exist, they have to repeat themselves each and every moment that they can, because that's basically what ignorance means. It means, let's say, utilizing your energy in non-constructive ways instead of preserving it, right? So that's how people start flaming others, people start judging others, right? Ultimately, ignorance is a way of justifying your own misaccomplishments, right? It is a way in which you simply ignore ideas, right? Because ignorance is ignorance, right? You simply don't take into account anything. you identify yourself with something, and well, that kind of becomes more important than your own life, right? It becomes more important than your own existence, right? That is why you have so many people who are so divided, right? You have people who support the LGBT, you have people who support, saving cats and dogs' rights, you have people who support this, you have people who support that, you have people who support something, right? But ultimately, they're all humans, right? They're all people. They look similar, yes. I mean, physically, they may have a different physique, but they still have a human body ultimately, right? They belong to different countries, but again, that's just other senses of, separation. But ultimately, they are still humans, okay? So the point is, ignorance will always try to divide because ignorance exists only in division, right? Because ignorance basically means, by default, it means division, right? You can't feel your own pains, you won't feel other people's pains, so basically other people are never your business, right? Which is basically the main and the most important step of separation. And that's why people are so easy to manipulate, because when you don't care about others and you don't care about yourself, well, others will, but it's, well, doubtful that they will ever have good plans, regarding you, right? And we can see this more and more nowadays. People are just doing everything for a survival that, well, is kind of unjustified, right? People may say about alien invasions, people are buying, billionaires are buying terrain from the peasants, and this outbreak is basically killing everyone. But, unfortunately, people just prefer staying ignorant and, they accept this idea of comfort zone. Still, a lot of people are waking up and they are fighting just what they should be doing because, well, ultimately, only through union will people basically survive, right? And never forget, the news will never tell you anything good, right? They're paid to say bad things, right? And keep their silence regarding certain things. Every time something is planned, right, people want to uprise, right? They always instigate lockdowns and such, and even more and more terror, right? It's always cases are going up, and everything that is bad, right? It's up to the people to realize that only through love things can be united, because love kind of seems to unite people and, well, pull people out of ignorance, which education should be doing, because education comes from the Latin educario. What does educario mean? Well, educario means that, you have to be pulled out of ignorance, right? To raise out of ignorance. But, well, school is kind of drilling you even further into ignorance, because if you don't do what you are said, you are, well, insignificant. Well, guess what? You're already insignificant in the face of society, because you're basically nothing else than a battery that is put in a device called the matrix, right? The machine, whatever you want to call it, right? Society. All you have to do is do by others' bidding. All you have to do is pay attention to literally everything else and simply allow yourself to be farmed and stripped of all the energy that you need a third of your life to acquire, right? Every human on this planet, right, has 24 hours in their own day. Every being on this planet has 24 hours in a day. You kind of have to sleep around 8 hours per day so that you have the energy to cope with that day. And in some cases, you might not even have that much, again. And then there's always those people who want your attention. There will be always those things who simply piss you off. And you have to understand that you already sleep 8 hours a day, which means a third of your life is already gone, right? Then you have to go 8 hours a day to work, which means another third of your life at least goes on pleasing others and helping others achieve their own dreams, right? So how much of your life are you actually living? Right? That's, let's say, 10% of your life that you get to live is most likely also spent in ignorance, because you don't want to see what's wrong in your life. Ignorance is the best shield to, avoid taking responsibility, right? Because responsibility and realization are the best counters of ignorance, right? So all this being said, hopefully this video proves, introspective enough. You are appreciated. Take care of yourselves. Ferenc John Bor signing out.